Hi everyone, it's Elaine Hamilton. Something a bit different today. Not something I normally talk about, but I thought it was worthwhile. It's been tapping me on the shoulder to share some of my experiences around the dying process. I think partly prompted in my own circumstances where I've got some really lovely people I care deeply about going through some very difficult stages. And the other thing is, like, death is the one thing that is going to happen to all of us. And it's kind of amazing to me how much fear we hold around it. Well, it's not amazing that we hold fear because it is also one of those things that nobody comes back and tells us what's going to happen. Sometimes you read these accounts of near death experiences where people do die for a certain time and they come back and they relate all their stories. And sometimes that brings some comfort to people. But I think in general, we don't really, we don't know what's going to happen, right? So there is a part of us that is very fearful of that unknown. So I just thought, I'm not giving you any philosophy here, not giving you any beliefs because I don't have a particular belief system myself. I don't know, and I know I don't know. So I don't find it particularly helpful for myself to hold on to any kind of belief. So this is purely a description of different aspects that I have experienced myself. So it's just a first-hand account of some of the experiences that I've had, and you can make what you will with them. I'm not telling you to think a certain way or even to believe me. It's just been helpful for me because I feel a certain level of comfort because of all these experiences that I have personally had. So I'm just sharing them with you. So over a very long period of time, I have been very privileged to witness people going through the dying process, people transitioning at the point of death, and also what happens afterwards. So I'm not a medium, I don't contact dead people, but sometimes as a Reiki person, when you're doing healing and just when you get close to people, it would seem that I do have a kind of channel open. So people do, when they pass over, give me certain messages. It's not something I've developed. It's not something I'm particularly interested in, but it happens. It happens. So it would seem that I do have quite a wide peripheral vision, if you like, energetically. So clearly with the Reiki, it helps a lot in helping me to develop the bandwidth. So it's a little bit, the way I look at it is kind of like eyesight or hearing. Hearing's probably better in that we have very differing sensitivities to hearing. Some of us can hear a massive range and others of us a more restricted range. And as we know, as we get older, that range gets smaller and smaller. For me, I feel that my range of energetics, so my ability to sense other dimensional energies or other entities or other whatever in a room or in a space, is quite strong and always has been. I've always, even as a child, been very intuitively connected to the vibes in a place, and that's not only the vibes of humans in the place. So I would consider myself pretty sensitive to people's energies and also the energies that are in the environment. So if the environment itself has been through a trauma of some sort, and then also other energies. And I don't really have much opinion about where that is or what that is, but we all know that there are huge scopes of energetics that we can't measure yet. And we do measure, but our human form isn't necessarily that sensitive to. But then in some of us, it is more sensitive than others. Seems pretty logical to me. I don't really have any issue with that. And it is my own lived experience. So all that being said, one of the things that working in a hospice, and if you talk to anybody that's worked with people who are going through transition, then they will all tell you that one of the very common things is that when people are near end of life, they start to mention loved ones who have passed. So, for example, my great grandmother in law, when she was passing, she started talking about her late husband. And I'm going to make up a name here because I can't remember the name of her late husband. Apologies. And she would say, "Oh, yeah, Bernard is coming to collect me on Sunday." And everybody around the family thought, "Oh, she's just starting to hallucinate. Her mind is breaking down and she's starting to make up things." And I remember when my ex told me about that and was like, "Oh, yeah, Nana said that Bernard's coming on Sunday." And they were kind of like, "Oh, she's losing her mind." And I was just like, "Well, no, she's telling you she's going on Sunday." And I think he was a bit shocked. And then, of course, even more shocked when she did actually pass away on Sunday. Now, to me, I find that kind of comforting. I think he was totally like weirded out by it. But for me, it was comforting because she knew. And not only did she know, but she could feel it. And there was a timetable, and she was kind of pretty happy about it, right? So that's one experience. But then also working in the hospice, one of the things that I would notice going into the bedrooms of people who were in the process of transition, what's interesting is that several days before transition, and this doesn't happen with everybody, but often, I would say most commonly, there is a increase in the energy of the room or the space that the person is in. So what I mean by that is when I would walk into a room of somebody nearing transition, and this could be the day, but usually for me it would build up over a couple of days. I would walk in and the room was translucent, radiant. It was radiant. And there would be this feeling of, there would be a buzz. I would say that there was a feeling of many bodies, many entities. When I say entities, people are like, "Ugh," they get all scared. But this feeling that there was a gathering of souls. It's hard to describe, but it always felt very loving, very supportive, very gentle, never scared, luminous, radiant. Radiant is a great word. And I would start, when I was walking into these rooms, I would automatically know there was a preparation process happening. And then within a couple of days of this happening, the person would pass. So I'm just describing my experience. Again, make of it what you wish. But it is one of those things that if you are supporting somebody in the dying process, or if you yourself are going through the grief of losing somebody, maybe if you can set aside your own grief and your own concerns about your loss and actually look at the environment and what's happening, you might sense what I'm talking about, because it can bring a huge amount of relief to you as a person supporting people going through the transition, to know that there's a process in place. Like, that's the one thing I will definitely say. There is a process in place that is very supportive and loving, and I would even say joyful. It just never felt scary to me. It always felt very held, like really like solid. And so this is one of the things that I noticed. The other thing that I would notice is that for many people going through it, when they themselves were open to it, and again, working in these situations, you can see people who are transitioning and they're kind of ready. They are surrendered to it. They're picking up on these people. Like, oh, my ex-husband's here, and my aunt is here, and my sister is here, and whatever. they can sense it, like they kind of know. So there's a certain level of peace within them as well. Then there's the other people who are really terrified and scared and in resistance, and they haven't really caught up with what's happening to them. And so there's an awful lot of fear. Now, that fear masks what's actually happening. Now, it doesn't mean that their passing will be fearful or bad in any way, because again, I feel that the transition when this happens, it's like they immediately see, and there is this, oh, thank God, it's not scary, right? That may happen to the person. Again, this is me projecting, I think, and some of the things that I've experienced. Now, in the point, I have had one experience and one only, but I'm going to describe it to you because it was kind of amazing, whereby I was very, very lucky to have a friend who trusted me enough to ask me to send Reiki when they were switching off a life support machine for her father. I felt very honored to do this. And so as I was sending, I knew that they were going to turn off the life support in the middle of my send. And the idea was that the Reiki would help support this person through transition. So it was very interesting for me. I'd never done anything like that before. And honestly, it was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. So I was doing the send. It was very peaceful. It was light. There was a lot of energy around. And then I could literally, I knew when they turned it off, because there was this explosion of light, and there was this opening, like a tunnel. I mean, to be honest, a lot of people, when they go through the death experience and then they come back, right? They say, oh, there was a big white light and a tunnel and a this and a that. And it was kind of like that. But I also know this. So in my mind, I'm like, am I just making this up? But I will describe this feeling of indescribable joy. And again, this sense of radiance and light. There was a sense that there was a gathering of souls. I'm gonna say souls, I don't know, like a gathering of unique and individual energy entities that came to greet the man as he passed over, and draw him, like show him the way. I don't know. Anyway, there was some kind of transition process that happened. And again, I relate this to you because it was a very clear and distinct transition period that happened. And again, it was this feeling of the total support of the system, tried and tested, running smoothly. The process is well and truly established. There's no hit and miss here. It's like there is a certain feeling of roles and movement and energy and support and love. So much love. So that was kind of amazing. Like honestly, that was so amazing. Um, And then afterwards, so a story to relate about the afterlife. Again, I have no opinion about this. I don't know. I just tell you the way that I feel it, in that often when I Reiki people, I can feel the presence of loved ones. And often when people talk about people that are passed, I get a very strong sense they're standing there in the room, sometimes with messages, sometimes not. And again, you could say, well, psychologically, that person that's talking to you has that, they're in their energy. Maybe, maybe. So I'm very open to whatever, but this is, again, simply my experience. And so I relay one that is probably the most validating for me because it was so weird. So I was working with a lovely family. They were Muslim, and they had a young son who was only 5, and he had a brain tumor. And so we were using Reiki to try and support him as best we could, and the family. So all the family learned Reiki. They were doing it on themselves. They were doing it on the child. And unfortunately, he passed. And it was terribly sad, and it was really tragic. And the family were really struggling, and they were grieving. And I knew very little about the Muslim religion. I still don't, to be honest. And this little boy started coming to me very insistently from from the afterlife. And again, this isn't unusual for me, but the difference was that I didn't understand, like I wasn't sure if the Muslim religion would find this totally unacceptable. I didn't know. And this little boy kept on coming to me and telling me to tell his mum that he was okay, that he was okay. And I sat with it for about a week, almost 10 days. I was like, oh, I can't. Eventually, and I remember very clearly, I was going to pick up my kids. It was a Friday afternoon, and I was sitting in the car. This little boy was sitting right next to me. Now, when I say sitting right next to me, it's a felt sense. I didn't see him, but it feels very strong in my system. It's really hard to describe, but there's this feeling of knowing that there is this presence, and this presence is being very insistent, and I can hear the talking. So the little boy was like, I am, it was so funny. I am going to stay with you and bug you until you tell my mom that I'm with Jana. So what I saw was Janna. I wasn't sure about the H at the time. Now I know there was an H there, but it was like Jana. And so I immediately assumed, oh, that was his name for his grandfather or somebody like that. And I was like, okay, and he just sat there and said, I'm not leaving until you do this. So I sat in the car, I was too scared. I was too scared to call the mom. I text the mom and I was like, I'm really sorry. And I don't know how you feel about this, but Danish is here and he wants you to know that he is with Jana. And I spelt it a couple of different ways with a question mark because I wasn't sure. The mum called me immediately, just streaming in tears. She had just come out of Friday prayers and she had been fervently praying for a sign. Now, I didn't realize this, but in her belief, when a loved one passes over, there's always a message that comes that says they're okay. And she said to me that she kept on going to her religious support, asking if there'd been a sign. She kept on expecting to have a dream. So she was looking for a sign everywhere. And then she gets a text from me. And not only that, but Jana, sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, actually means the specific place where children go, like the paradise they go to in her religion. So it was like coming from me, who had no idea about any of this, giving her a name strongly enough that was the sign. And she said, you know what, if I had had that from anybody else, I would have doubted it. But it was so left field coming from you. It was so out of my recognition. I knew it was from him. Like she just knew. And it was just, I relay the experience because it was just so weird. Again, I don't know. We can make what we want of it, but I do know that it gave her so much comfort. And for me, it was such a strong experience and validation that there is so much more going on than we understand or we know. And what is going on is so well taken care of. I think that's the main message, I guess, of just saying you don't have to be scared of it. It's not a scary thing. And then you can create all kinds of elaborate belief systems. Frankly, I think is a complete waste of time because you will know when you know. You'll know when you get there. But for those of us who are either in the process or in the process of supporting somebody else and already feeling the fear and grief ourselves of what's going to happen to them and are they still, what's going on, I just relate these to you because my experience over the years has been so profound and kind of weird, I guess, but always joyful, radiant, and full of energy. That's what I'm going to say. It's just so full of energy in the most loving and compassionate way. I just personally, I have no fear of that because of my own experiences. I guess I'm very lucky in that respect. I mean, I have fear about all the illnesses and diseases and all that stuff, but the passing over, I'm just not, I'm not concerned about at all because of what I've seen. Okay, the last little story I want to tell you is my dog, little Junie. So she, and this is kind of interesting because it's quite different. So by the time she passed, she was quite old. She was also very blur, so as we would say in Singapore. Not sure whether she had dementia or whether she was just really old, but she was a doddery old thing. But she was the most loving, gorgeous creature, honestly. And in the end, it got to the point where it was the most humane thing to do to put her down. So we took her to the vet. I was a mess. Anybody who's lost a pet knows this, right? It's so sad. It's so difficult. So I'm just sobbing and sobbing, and even the vet's crying because I'm crying so much. And and anyway, so they give June the injection, and as the injection goes in, it happens very quickly. It's kind of amazing, and it's kind of peaceful. It's not peaceful. I mean, she was struggling a little bit, and that wasn't very peaceful. And I'm totally not peaceful. I'm just like sobbing and sobbing. But I saw something that just shifted my entire perspective in that the moment she passed over, I saw her soul, her energy, her whatever you want to call it, leave her body like a puff of white smoke come out of her body. And then I heard a sigh as the smoke dispersed and just disappeared into the universe. Now, I can't even describe the sigh. It was so full of relief, joy. I don't know, even now talking about it and experiencing it again, it was just the most transcendent thing I'd ever seen. Of course, me being me, I'm like, oh my God, did you see that? Thinking that everyone would have seen this smoke and heard it's like, did you hear that? Did you see that? Did you hear that? And the vet's looking at me like I'm mental. So then I shut up because I'm like, oh no, that wasn't actually a physical thing. That was an energetic thing that only I saw. But it meant that I just didn't grieve at all. Not a bit. Like I missed her, but I knew that was me missing her. But there was no grief because the sigh was so it was just like, oh, brilliant, like brilliant, fantastic. I'm home. I'm I'm back. I don't even know how to describe it. It was just the relief of being released from her painful little body, I guess. It must have been a lot of pain or struggle in the end for her, of being released from that. But then it was also the universe, like the sigh was simultaneous. So it was my dog being remerged. It's not a word, but you know what I mean. Free, and the universe embracing her back. It was wild. It was so wild. And I also appreciate that not all animals do this, because I've had other experiences from friends that their pets pass and then they feel their pets like I feel humans that have passed. They feel pets that have passed. And sometimes I also feel animals that have passed. So I know that not all animals, and I've never experienced a human do that, though I guess that's part of the philosophy around enlightenment, right? If you become enlightened, then that's what happens. You don't have to keep, your soul doesn't keep reincarnating. Now I'm going into belief systems, but it kind of makes sense, right? So I'm like, okay, maybe that's the difference. Maybe my little Junie was really just enlightened. I don't know, who knows? But that was again a very different kind of experience whereby it was just the experience of the soul totally reintegrating with the greater soul, the greater universe. And that was a stunning experience. So, yeah, honestly, I could go on and on and on, but I guess the point of this video is just to maybe open your hearts, open your minds to really experiencing what's actually happening without your belief systems or your fears or your mind trying to make it into something. Now, obviously, if you do have a belief that works for you, that's great. Like, I do wonder sometimes, because religion was really good for that, is really good for that, because it has such a clear definition of what happens and where we go and the this and the that. And I think that can really help support us when we're feeling very fearful. And I think the fact that most of us now are not religious has left a kind of gap in this particular thing, how we deal with death. I tend to sit in the like I don't and I think I did a video on this a couple of weeks ago, but I don't particularly feel I need to have a belief around death because who knows? And I think also I'm pretty lucky because I've had so many of these types of experiences that I'm describing to you, that the feeling of joy, radiance, love is consistent throughout this, no matter whether it happens a little bit differently and there's a little bit of different energetics going on, but the underlying compassion, not even sure I'd call it compassion, I would really call it love, that is holding all of these transitions in place is very consistent as far as I'm concerned. So I don't really need a belief because I just feel, well, I know that that's true for me. That's true for me, and it's true in all the situations I've seen so far. And I keep collecting the data. That's all we can do, right? Keep an open mind, keep collecting the data. And I hope this has been helpful or at least starts you thinking in a slightly different way in terms of the possibilities that this transition is. I mean, it's a transition we all go through. So, of course, it's pretty well trodden. It's a pretty well trodden transition. And it's not that scary. It's a beautiful part of whatever it is that we're going through in this life. The end is as spectacular as the beginning, I guess. All right, guys. Hope that's helpful. Take care. Lots of love. Bye.